In a remote gully in Vancouver, Washington, a hiker made a chilling discovery on November 14, 1974. Tucked away in the brush along a quiet logging road, he found human remains. They belonged to a young girl, no older than 16. She had no wallet, no identification, and no one to claim her. For the next 4 decades, she would be known only as Jane Doe, her identity lost to the passing years, her story silenced before it could ever be told. This is the story of a life interrupted, a mystery that spanned generations, and the relentless pursuit of an identity that science would ultimately restore. Investigators arrived at the scene and quickly realized this was no accident. The evidence pointed to foul play, a violent end to a young life. But who was she? Where did she come from? Without a name or a face to put to the tragedy, the case was a blank slate. She was a ghost, separated from her family, her friends, and her entire life story. For years, she became just another name in a cold case file, a number among countless unsolved mysteries. As the 70s turned into the 80s, and then the 90s, she remained a girl without a past, a silent victim whose voice was lost in the wilderness. Detectives and investigators across the decades refused to let her case go cold. They tried everything they could think of. Forensic artists created sketches, hoping to reconstruct her face from the skull, giving the public a glimpse of who she might have been. These haunting images were circulated in newspapers, accompanied by pleas for information. Appeals went out, asking if anyone remembered a girl who fit her description, someone who had vanished without a trace around that time. Tips trickled in, leading investigators on wild goose chases across state lines, but each lead turned into a dead end. No missing person reports seemed to match her. No panicked family members came forward to claim her. It was as if she had simply materialized in that gully, with no connections to the outside world. She remained frozen in time, her life a complete void, invisible to everyone. The world moved on, but for the detectives who inherited her case, she was a constant, nagging reminder of a story that desperately needed an ending. As the new millennium dawned, a revolution was underway in the world of forensic science. DNA technology, once the stuff of science fiction, was becoming a powerful tool for law enforcement. Investigators saw a new glimmer of hope. In the 2000s, they made the decision to exhume Jane Doe's remains. It was a delicate process, driven by the belief that modern science could unlock the secrets her bones had held for so long. DNA samples were carefully extracted and preserved, a biological time capsule waiting for technology to catch up. Years passed, and the science of genetic genealogy began to emerge. This new field combined DNA analysis with traditional family tree research, offering a revolutionary way to identify unknown individuals. Forensic experts and genealogists took her preserved DNA profile and uploaded it to public ancestry databases and specialized forensic platforms. They were casting a wide net, hoping to find a match, any match, that could point them in the right direction. And then, it happened. A hit. They found a distant relative, a cousin many times removed. It was a tiny thread, but it was a start. From that one connection, they began to build a family tree, identifying more relatives, each one bringing them a step closer to the truth. The puzzle, which had been scattered in a million pieces for 40 years, was finally starting to take shape. Slowly but surely, a name began to emerge from the complex web of genetic data. In 2015, the decades of silence were finally broken. After more than 40 years of being an anonymous Jane Doe, she was given back her name, Martha Morrison. She was just 16 years old when she disappeared. The investigators soon learned that Martha came from a family who had never stopped wondering, never stopped searching, but whose own troubled history had made it difficult for law enforcement to connect the dots back then. Martha had run away from a youth facility in Oregon, and her family, grappling with their own challenges, had lost track of her. But they had never forgotten her. With her identity restored, a huge piece of the puzzle was solved. The world finally knew who she was. The ghost in the gully had a name, a face, and a family. The mystery of her identity, which had haunted investigators for so long, was finally over. She was no longer a statistic in a cold case file. She was Martha. But solving one mystery only opened the door to another, much darker one. We now knew who she was, but the most critical questions remained unanswered. What happened to Martha Morrison in her final days? Who was responsible for her tragic death? How did a 16-year-old girl from Oregon end up in a remote gully in Washington state, so far from anyone who knew her? Her life had been cut short so violently, and the reasons why were still shrouded in darkness. While forensic technology had given her back her name and her history, it couldn't provide all the answers. The who had been solved, but the how and why remained an agonizing mystery. The investigation into her identity was closed, but the investigation into her murder was now wide open, with a new name and a new face to guide the way. The story of Martha Morrison serves as a powerful and somber reminder. It reminds us that for every case that makes headlines, there are countless others that fade into obscurity, victims who become forgotten as the world moves on. These are the Jane and John Does, the unidentified and the unclaimed, whose stories risk being lost to time forever. Yet, Martha's case also offers a message of hope. It shows that with persistence, dedication, and the incredible power of science, closure is possible, even decades later. It proves that no case is ever truly cold, and no victim is ever truly forgotten as long as someone is willing to keep searching for answers. She was no longer just Jane Doe. She was Martha Morrison, a girl with a family, a history, and a story that, though tragically unfinished, would never be erased again. Her name has been returned to her, and with it, the dignity she was denied for so long. And somewhere, the search for justice for Martha continues. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more true stories of mystery and resilience.